Ladies and gentlemen, we are glad for you to come and share with us in this space today. I am happy to share this stage with one of our associate ministers here, the Reverend Frank Lee Johnson Sr. We have had some very powerful conversations throughout our time in ministry here, and I believe today we'll be blessed from hearing some of his history and something that will enlighten our minds of the space he works in and where we are as a people today. So today, please, you don't mind, share with the people, who is Frank Lee Johnson from Lorain, Ohio?
Thank you for that introduction. As Pastor has said, my name is Frank Lee Johnson. I am the oldest son of Wise Frank and Ada Bell Short Johnson, who both hailed out of the Carolinas. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was a pleasure for me when I found out that you was raised up with some of my cousins. Small world. With Willie Jr. and Teresa and Donzer. Small world. And to hear about the community, how things were shaped at that time. You know, we mentioned as growing up how our family lives have shaped a lot of who we are today. What did that look like for you in the early years of formation of being a believer in an environment you was raised in the 60s and 70s?
As a believer, as a child, my grandfathers on my mother and my father's side were all preachers.
All right.
And so my mother was steeped in the church. My father was a trustee in the church. And so I was raised in the church going to BTU, and they would line us up, put a Bible in our hand, give us a text. And the first one that could find that text in that Bible will win a little prize.
Yes,
so that's how I was raised at Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church. Reverend C.W. McKendricks was my pastor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So from there, you go into college, right? You're finding your ways in anything that leads through that space. Because what I hear is that you was one of the baddest basketball players in the city.
In fact.
All right, well, tell your story.
I was somewhat of a baller.
Oh, what you say? What you say? You was putting them up, man?
I was putting them up, and I was really, really known for some D.
Okay.
I got a nice jump shot even today.
Well, the formation is there. You just
Exactly.
you just got to follow through.
Exactly.
It's like riding a bike. You don't forget.
You don't forget.
I try to tell my sons that you got to get the fundamentals right. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And so I warn them sometimes, and I still go out and shoot. I still go out and shoot some, that all I have to do at my age is just drop one on you, and that's a mic drop moment.
And you walk away, I'm done.
I walk away, I'm done.
Oh, my goodness. So we was talking the other day, and you made a comment about the tension of racism and seeing the response of your father, seeing that manhood, that leadership, that partnership with mom and dad about how we're going to fend for the family. What did that build in you character-wise and the mindset to go into the world to be an achiever and to be the best? How that shaped you through the years as realizing that these things made me who I am today?
And so let me preface my answer with first, my father had a 7th grade education, born in 1906, but was the wisest man that I've ever known.
Yes, sir.
My mother graduated from a Negro industrial high school in Rockingham, North Carolina. And so my father was a laborer, a construction worker. My mother, if anyone has seen the story The Help, that's my mother's story. And if you have not seen the movie The Help, it's all about people that went into white people's houses in the South, cleaned their homes, and raised their children. And so for me, in the environment that I was in, I went to a predominantly white high school with about 600 people in my graduating class. 13 of us were black.
Wow.
Some of the kids that I went to school with, my father worked for.
Wow.
Some of the kids that I went to school with, my mother worked for their parents. And so tried to figure out a kid in 1968 trying to navigate that space with people popping off and approaching you in the wrong way. They think they know you because you play basketball.
Right.
And that instilled in me a desire where my parents always taught me, especially my mother, nobody is better than you, but you're not better than anybody. And that I send you to school to learn, and so you must learn. And so the drive in me was always to show that I was just as good, if not better, than anyone in my class.
And this is blessing me. I go through this daily with trying to put that into a child, which many people say you can't put ambition in someone. You know, you can't make someone hungry, but to realize what your generation built and what my generation benefit from, it concerns me for the next generation who has no desire, no drive, unless it's in a certain space that they're just, you know, comfortable with naturally do from a talent, which is usually sports or arts, right? But you say you had this formation from both parents serving the church. You have this picture of working class, hardworking, you know, parents, and you're in the mid-America area now. It's a city, industrial area.
Yes.
And so there's gangs.
Yes.
There's nightlife, and there's a young Frank who don't take much from people, and also already got a little chip on the shoulder because you got to deal with all this tension and racism and microaggressions at school day by day. What navigates out of that space into who you are today?
Navigating out of that space really just gave me the drive. And as you say, I had this chip on my shoulder. I was looking for trouble.
So you were looking for it. He say like if one more.
One more. I am from the revolution will not be televised.
Oh, let's talk about it. Open the door up. I'm ready to walk in. Come on.
If I may.
All right. What's his name? Gil Scott?
Gil Scott here.
Okay.
I am from a rat done bit my sister Nell, and Whitey's on the moon.
Whitey's on the moon. Whitey's on the moon. Oh man, help me. Come on with it.
But we can't pay our light bills.
Yes, sir.
We can't find jobs. I came out of that. And being in an industrial area, probably not understanding, I knew that I wanted to be an engineer because those in an industrial area, an industrial city with shipyards, steel mills, and auto plants, I saw an engineer's role as a great opportunity to show I'm just as good as you.
Yes, sir.
And so that's what really, really drove me. And that tension, always trying to prove that I was better than, although God made me perfect as I was.
Yes, sir.
But I had to wrestle with and navigate that space and try to control that anger. I kept my mama on her knees.
Yes, sir. And that's a black male development. And for some reason, I just view it that most black women, young ladies, come out with a vision of their future, with a passion to pursue it, with help or not. They're determined to listen, this is what I want for my life. But for us, usually between that 16 to 20 something, those are some formative years, we're trying to figure it out. And it's amazing that, as you said, that you are going through these emotional changes and these environmental realities that usually sometimes bend us off on the wrong road.
Yes.
So you make your mind up, I want to be an engineer, but how did you get from being an engineer or desiring to be an engineer to aviation?
In high school, I was fortunate enough to graduate from a 2-year program as a vocational machinist.
Okay.
I went to college to be an engineer. I left college because I started a family. Ain't always been holy. And in a desire to take care of my family, that foundation allowed me to pick a career that steered me to aviation as I picked an occupation to serve in the military. Okay. Because remember, I'm a Vietnam era veteran.
Yes, sir.
And I'm grateful for the older brothers that I had on the block that cautioned me about what I would do when I went into the military. I already knew that I wasn't going to be a combat soldier.
So you were You left college because of family life.
Yes.
But while you was in the family life, you went to the service?
I went to the service.
Okay, and tell the story.
And so I had my oldest son is now, he'll be 50 years old in August.
Okay.
He just retired after 28 years as a major in the military.
All right.
So everything that I strive to do to raise and nurture a family in Christ, it paid off.
Yes,
with my oldest child.
Yes, sir.
And so just the basic need to make sure that I had income and insurance to take care of my family,
Yes, sir.
that drove me to the military. With the long view that I could use a GI Bill to continue going to college, continue my education, and just have benefits. And that paid off for me.
Okay. So then from there, you go into what space of career?
So
After Vietnam.
When I separated from the military, I was working on helicopters in the military.
Okay.
And though I had to get out of the military because I still had that chip on my shoulder.
Okay.
Okay, so that was rough. But the skills that I learned at 20 years old, I was in Alaska, and I was the sole person responsible for maintaining 25 helicopters and 4 airplanes in Alaska as a 20-year-old. And so that taught me responsibility. It taught me how to deal with pressure, and it allowed me to hone my skills working on the airframe and structures of aircraft. When I separated from the military, I was bit by the aviation bug. And so an opportunity came up for me to leave Cleveland, Ohio, move down to Miami. They gave me $1,000 an airplane ticket and told me, if you want a job, you can come to Miami and work at this repair station. Young, crazy, wasn't afraid of nothing.
Right.
I hopped on an airplane and came to Miami, and that launched an amazing career.
Yes, sir. So tell us about the journey.
So the journey began as a mechanic, working on airplanes at Miami International Airport. I did that at Air Tech Services. I learned so much at that time period while also too going to school. And then that still tension, I'm just as good, if not better than you. When you're in certain spaces, you find out about opportunities that people don't think that you have the opportunity to participate in. Lo and behold, I learned that there are people that are going overseas and working in Saudi Arabia. They're working in Iran. They're working in Iraq because of all of the oil there, and airlines were being built and whatnot. And I know people going over making $100,000 a year tax-free. And I'm like, yo, I could do that. And after 2 attempts, I was finally hired on as an aircraft maintenance technician with Saudi Airlines. I took my family and I lived in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for 3 years. When I left there, I was a maintenance instructor teaching thousands of Saudi cadets, kids, that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia sent abroad and were coming back into the country so that they can ultimately take over their airlines and have jobs. I left there as an instructor, training them up in the way that they should go in terms of aircraft maintenance.
Wow. So what do you do today?
Today, just to show you how providential God is, when I came back from Saudi Arabia, I went into quality inspection, and then another opportunity came up. This is back in the days where when you were looking for a job on Sundays, you would get the Sunday newspaper.
That's right.
You would sit down, you would go through the Sunday newspapers, and lo and behold, I see a little clip like this. A European aircraft manufacturer is looking for maintenance instructors. I reached out, a headhunter came and looked me up, and for the last 38 years, I have been working with Airbus, a European aircraft manufacturer, the largest commercial aircraft manufacturer in the world. And in the 38 years that I've been with them, I've been a maintenance instructor. I was the manager of maintenance training for all of the Americas, Canada, the US, South America. I dispatch people around the world, and I work with all of the major airlines that purchase our aircraft to provide training to qualify their technicians, flight crew, and pilots on our aircraft.
Have you had some challenges through these jobs? You know, you had the chip to prove, you know, because that's your makeup. I'm a competitor. I'm an athlete.
Yes.
You know, I come from a different context. I understand racism. I've seen it towards my parents, you know, so you had a different lens on life. But as you pursued these different areas and climbed up the ladder, did DEI help you?
DEI was not a thing.
Yes, sir.
It was not a thing. If you made it on your own grit and your determination. But maybe I can share just a little bit of insight, though it wasn't DEI. As I say, I started as a maintenance instructor. I became the manager of maintenance training for the Americas, working for this European company. I went on to become a customer support director. And I'll just say one of the highlights there, I talked about the aftermarket support once our airplanes are delivered to people. As an example, one of my major achievements, order intake. As a customer support director responsible for that support, one of my performance objectives was to sell solutions and services to our customers. I maxed out at about $115 million in order intake in 1 year. I rode shotgun on all of those contracts, deliveries, the whole bit. I had another $150 million just in the pipeline, but I left that position. And so when you say, when you ask the question, was DEI available? I want people to truly understand this. Because it was a European company, I know for a fact in my heart that if I would have, and I applied for a Boeing, I applied for the TWAs, the Eastern Airlines, the United Airlines and whatnot, couldn't get a knock on the door.
Right.
But because of a European company and a French man that happened to have served in World War II and happened to had served at Pensacola Air Force Base up in northern Florida, where I was concerned about the technology, he was like, Frank. We don't care about that. We'll teach you what you need to know.
Right.
What I want to know is you. And so he hired me. And that launched a career that's now going on 38 years. And right now, having set foot on 5 of the 7 continents with this country, had hundreds and hundreds of cultural interactions with French, German, English, Spanish, all over South America, Africa, the Middle East. This is A to B, and why is Frank, little boy, traveling around the world doing all of this?
Yes, sir.
And it's because French people recognized me for who I was and gave me an opportunity.
So you rose to the top of this industry as a black man because you was the best.
Because I was the best.
And on top of that, the Black History moment is you're the only black man in this space.
I'm the only black man in this space. Right? I don't want to say only. There's never a definitive only, but there's so few that when I travel and I meet someone of color in my space, in my customer support director role, as an example, with a major cargo carrier out of Memphis, I won't mention the airline. I went and set up a meeting with the senior executives and our senior executives. I walked into a nice country club in Memphis for this swank dinner, you know, to entertain them, to gain more business. I'm the only one there. And I'm driving this with the CEOs. And when I walk into the place, you can see the help. That's us.
Yes, sir.
In Memphis, they were kind of taken aback. But then I was like, what's up?
What up, though? Right, dap
Thank
you
you,
up.
sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I appreciated that.
Awesome. So, again, what is the title? And when people say, okay, Reverend Johnson, what you do? What you responsible for? What would you tell a young person asking you about your profession? How would you explain to them to understand the space you are at?
So right now, I am the Quality and Regulatory Compliance Manager responsible for all internal and external government rules, regulations, and policies, and that we stay compliant to keep us safe. And as I go into colleges, I do this a lot. As I go into high schools, elementary schools, I always tell children, to young adults, to be determined. And that with all that you do, whatever your discipline or your specialty might be, I don't care what it is, first be true to yourself. But if you learn how to read, please read, 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 read. Whatever you do, read. Number two, write. Learn how to write. The one word for both of those is to communicate. Communicate. And if you do that, then whatever space that you are in, when you get a chance to make that elevator pitch, when someone gives you 2 minutes to give them an idea, or to take the complex and break it down for an executive that's just got 3 minutes to listen to you, be able to communicate, be confident, and have your presence. Read, 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 learn how to write, learn how to stand in front of people, shake someone's hand, look them in their eyes, and then be you. Those are the keys to me.
Yes, sir. So as well as what you do, you're responsible for selling airplanes.
I help
And training, right?
Exactly, exactly. So when you hear about an airline that just signed a $8 billion deal to upgrade their fleet, from the customer support training aspect, when we all come around the table to present what we can do for you in flight, in maintenance, in technical operations, in engineering, and in my role in training, I'm there front and center presenting to the customer how we can provide training solutions to make sure that your people can operate and maintain the aircraft safely and efficiently.
So now we're watching every other day, planes seemingly fall out the sky, run into things. What's happening from the context of you working this space and knowing the requirements and knowing the training? What is happening? All of a sudden, last month we straight, this month, what's going on in the sky? What's happening?
So what's happening right now is a culmination of a number of lapses over the years in crowded airspace. And so I would just simply tell you that aviation, there have been more people that die in 1 year in car accidents in the United States than have died in the entire 70 plus years of commercial aviation. Airplane crashes. That's how safe it is. And so here, humans are always. So in my journey, I'm also considered to be someone that can teach human factors and crew resource management. How do humans interact with technology? Because normally we're always somewhere in the mix at the root cause of a failure. This accident in DC, pretty much so, it looks like a human error where a helicopter just flew 100 feet above an assigned altitude that looks like it may have caused that crash. And so it's a combination of human factors and overload in the system. And I'll go all the way back to the years of President Ronald Reagan, our air traffic controllers. He fired 12,000 of them. We've never recovered from that back in the 80s when he was the president.
So history says that Trump is not the first.
He's not the first.
Tell the story.
He is not the first. And so with that in mind, with respect to making sure that funding is there to make sure that you got the right number of people that are qualified. On the one hand, if you don't have diversity, equity, and inclusion, which also simply means that you're not giving anybody anything, you're just making sure that the opportunity is there, but everybody must meet the same standard. And if you understand the demographics of this country, white people are dying out. They're not having babies. And so if you don't include the black, the brown, and the women in the equation, then what's left to sit at the table is not enough to fill the pipeline for what we need to sustain our economy, to sustain any type of industry itself.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing that. I know there's a lot of people who are afraid to fly. They're, projecting, driving, not going anywhere at all. just for lack of understanding, right?
Yes.
It matters about information, about receiving facts, and from someone credible who works in that space. So thank you for speaking to the people in that. But, you're a preacher, right? So in this space, what opportunities have been afforded to you throughout the years to preach, not only in a pulpit ministry, but in the marketplace?
In the marketplace, it is so gratifying for me because my faith has been tried. When I talk about the chip that I have on my shoulder, dealing with people that have issues, that's that proverbial thorn in my side that Paul had in his.
Yeah.
But because the Spirit works on me, as an example, I wear many hats where I work. But because of how I walk circumspectly, and I let everybody know who I am and what I do, when the opportunity came up, we need an ethics and compliance rep. I know nothing about ethics and compliance. I just know that my mama said.
Always tell the truth.
Always tell the truth.
Right. Yes, sir.
And so they sought me out.
Yeah.
And pulled me aside and said, Frank, we understand that you're a pastor. Frank, we would like you to be an ethics and compliance rep. People in the training center, they talk to you, they confide in you, they tell me that you've prayed for them in hard times. They respect you. Would you consider taking this role? And in fact, when I took the customer support director role, there were 7 of us that were responsible for about 2,500 airplanes flying in the U.S. Mm-hmm. The French guy that hired me for that role, he went home. I found out from his wife when I met her. He went home and told her, baby, guess what? I hired a preacher. And so I've always walked humble, circumspect, not common. I've had CEOs that tried to kill me, but ended up coming to me for prayer.
Come on, tell
when
the story.
Cancer struck their family.
Tell the story.
Or when their feet were cut out from under them for a performance appraisal. I'm talking about they literally could have they were doing everything they could to get rid of me in spite of.
Yes, sir.
But they ended up, God made them my footstool because I always let my light shine. And so you mentioned when I was in Saudi Arabia, young Muslim brothers that I was working with.
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson, Allah has been so good to you. How come you do not worship Allah and you're not a Muslim? I tread carefully because I'm in the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
But since you asked the question,
I got to answer.
I got to answer the question. And I must say that once you have a Saudi or a Muslim for a friend, that is a friend for life. And in fact, even while I lived in the kingdom, I got more trouble out of people from England than I did from the local natives. And so for me, letting my light shine, you send me out. I don't want to say that I'm not an ecumenical type preacher or whatnot, but if you call me to pray at a public event, we call it on the name of Jesus.
Yes, sir.
And people have come to know me and respect me and recognize that. And so I just walk and let my light shine wherever Christ sends me.
Yes, sir. Well, preacher, it's been an honor just sharing the space and be able to now let some of them lean into some of our conversations we've been having some time to kind of get a context of where we are today and to inform us of how we should lead out, how we should keep our integrity, how to keep our witness before people. But I wanted to ask, as you work this space and, you mentioned that, you're looking towards the retiring stage, what do you want the legacy of your work and your ministry to be to the next generation?
My legacy that I would like is threefold. First, that people would know that I am a servant of Christ. That drives everything. That I nurtured and raised a family and set examples through my children. One's a pilot, one's a retired major, one's a cybersecurity analyst, one is a senior non-commissioned officer in the military right now, And I have a daughter with 2 beautiful children. She's a homeschooler, supreme, an activist, and her and her husband own their own contracting business. But then beyond that, the third part of that pillar is my legacy is that I navigated and that I represented in the space and that I helped to create pipelines. I have nurtured and mentored, along with my wife, who is also an aviator. I better drop that in there. She's a commercial pilot. Wow. We're both tied up in the community and doing things in the community. But literally, we fed kids in college. We bought eyeglasses for them. We mentored them. We coached them. And we helped to create pipelines to create opportunities. And we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. Those threefold pillars of what I would want my legacy to be.
For a young person who has no clue what we're talking about, what would you share with them to follow your footsteps in this space, which we know is not really occupied with people of our skin color and our gender?
I want them to become familiar with this acronym, STEM, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. If you talk to your guidance counselor, tell them you want STEM curriculums. And if you partake and participate in STEM curriculums, then you are preparing yourself at an early age to launch yourself into some type of technical career, be it aerospace, information technology, software, whatever it might be, science, technology, engineering, and math. If you set your sight on those early on and partake of those opportunities in the schools, then you can have a fruitful and a wonderful career.
Yes, sir. Thank you, preacher.
Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you. You are Black history. We thank God for you. This has been Black History at Piney Grove. We thank you for tuning in. I pray that something has been said to encourage you and ignite something in you to pass on to the next generation, that they make their contributions to excellence. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.